In 2022, what are some of the challenges that buyers are facing in the automotive world? Well, one has to be the car shortages, which is affecting new and used car prices and really limiting how many affordable alternatives are on the market if you are on a budget. But now that we're heading into the halfway point of the year, gas prices are increasing as well, which is creating some hesitancy whether you are looking at buying a V6 or V8 powered crossover or something that's not really that fuel efficient, but also it might be affecting you where you're looking to downsize. Well, I have found the perfect solution, which is the 2022 Nissan Kicks. Now, I know what you're thinking. It's a subcompact crossover, might not be the most family friendly, but it is efficient, it is practical, it is affordable. It checks off all the boxes if you are somebody that's looking at buying your first ever new car or you're looking to downsize. And that's why I am here. We don't really take a look at a lot of fuel efficient vehicles, and considering where we are right now in the automotive world and with gas prices being as high as they are, I figured now is the right time to take a look at Nissan's most affordable crossover to see if it is a great value, but also if it's worth purchasing in 2022. Now, before we get in this video, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to Boch Nissan in Norwood, Massachusetts for allowing me to do this review. The link will be in the description below so you can check out their extensive Nissan inventory. Also, before we get started, make sure to hit the subscribe button and click the notification bell so you're notified every time a new video goes live on the channel. And so, without wasting any further time, let's get right in this review. Subcompact crossovers have had an interesting history in the modern era for the automotive world, as American consumers by nature prefer larger vehicles. But also, this segment is home to a handful of front-wheel drive econo-boxes that tend not to appeal to buyers living in colder regions of the US. The Nissan Kicks is one of those vehicles. However, it has quickly become an enticing option, mostly due in part to the rising car and gas prices. And with its practicality and overall efficiency, it's a no-brainer for buyers on a very strict budget. With competitors like the Toyota CHR, Honda HR-V, and Hyundai Venue experiencing only mild success, how has Nissan not only remained relevant, but have thrived in this segment with their most affordable crossover? Starting off with pricing, the Nissan Kicks SV comes in at just under $22,000, making this subcompact the third most affordable model in the lineup behind the Versa and Sentra. Unlike some competitors, the Kicks is decently sized, coming in at 10 inches longer than the Hyundai Venue, and is just marginally smaller than the Honda HR-V. Rather than being boxy or too futuristic with unconventional body lines or cosmetic features, this little crossover looks more like a lifted hatchback, but with a higher roofline, and now have a major impact not only on cargo space, but also the amount of room you have inside. It could be debated as to whether Americans have outgrown econo boxes in this market, mostly because we become accustomed to SUVs. But Nissan's approach to blending characteristics from both the crossover and hatchback seems to have caught on with consumers in this price range. Continuing on with the road presence, Nissan gave the Kicks a much-needed facelift last year, primarily redesigning the headlights, but also enhancing the front grille to really give this subcompact crossover a sleeker and modern appearance. It would be a stretch to call the front fascia sporty. However, the mixture of gloss black and chrome accents provide the right amount of color contrast, where the Kicks doesn't appear to be cheap like we traditionally see in this market. Better yet, with a two-toned exterior, it makes this vehicle not only look slightly bigger, but adds visual substance to the Kicks, where the boxier shape isn't as noticeable. With the SV, you'll have halogen headlamps, but if you're willing to spend a little extra for the SR, they will be upgraded to full LED, along with fog lights to provide better visibility at night. Moving over to the side profile, the SV is sitting on 17-inch aluminum alloy wheels, which really helps complete the look of this crossover, as the 16s found on the base model really showed this vehicle's price point. When it comes to ride quality and suspension, there were no surprises, as the Kicks handled the bumps as well as you'd expect in this segment, and we'll get into more of that during the test drive. Since this model does have the optional two-toned exterior, we have gloss black side mirrors for a sleeker appearance. And believe it or not, the SV does come standard with blind spot detection, lane departure warning, rear cross traffic alert, and automatic braking to make the Kicks a safe vehicle for a young driver. Then coming around to the back, the Nissan Kicks has a more conventional rear fascia than its rivals, as you could make the argument that it's a lifted hatchback rather than being a true crossover. While still not aerodynamic by any means, the body lines are easier on the eyes than what we experience from the current CHR and HR-V. And best of all, the plastic cladding has been kept to a minimum for the rear bumper, as you have a body color rear diffuser. Trendy is the light bar running the length of the hatch, but in the future it would be great to see Nissan offer full LED taillights just to give the Kicks a bit more of an upscale road presence. Under the hood, the Kicks is powered by a 1.6-liter 4-cylinder engine, producing 122 horsepower and 114 pound-feet of torque, and is paired with a CVT. Performance is probably where Nissan can improve, and amazingly, it's not the lack of a true automatic transmission that hurts this crossover, but rather the powertrain, as acceleration times certainly don't garner inspiration. Obviously, the Kicks was designed to be as economical and practical as possible, and that's where it shines the most, with a fuel economy of 31 miles per gallon in the city and 36 miles per gallon on the highway. As mentioned earlier, the Kicks is front-wheel drive only, so that may affect your decision on whether to spend more to opt for the Rogue Sport. But all in all, it lives up to the name of being called an Econobox. Stepping inside, you're greeted by mainly adjustable cloth seats for both the driver and passenger. But if you're looking for improved support, you may want to go with the SR trim, as these seats aren't aggressively bolstered and quite firm. The rest of the interior is filled with surprises, as you have a push-button start, but the SV also gives you remote start, which is extremely rare to see in this segment. A minor touch that goes a long way is the soft touch materials for the center console and armrest, and the fact that there's even a semblance of refinement is impressive. In front of you, there will be a half analog, half digital gauge cluster to give you a variety of information, and best of all, resolution and quality outclasses competitors. Then taking a glance at the infotainment system, you'll have an 8-inch touchscreen with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto compatibility. Typical for most head units in this market, the user interface isn't too in-depth, and it's very easy to use, with quick access buttons and physical dials for the volume and tuning knobs mounted on either side of the screen. For a crossover price just above $20,000, we weren't expecting to be astonished by the intuitiveness or even find this infotainment system appealing to look at. Yet the responsiveness, complete lack of lagging, and even the resolution could put rivals to shame. You'll have a rear backup camera with trajectory, which once again isn't usually offered on cheaper vehicles. Below, you'll find the buttons and dials for the climate control settings, and beneath that, there'll be a cubby for your smartphone, and you'll have a USB-C and USB input. And rounding out the front seating area, for the standard storage compartment, there'll be enough room for a wallet or very small items. Now for passengers in the back, we're going to start off on the passenger side, and the seat is adjusted further back. It's also somewhat on a recline, and I still have a few inches of legroom to work with here. Now, of course, we're not talking a vehicle that can fit people over 6 feet tall. I don't know if they're going to be very comfortable back here. Headroom-wise, it's not too bad. I think average-sized adults should be fine back here, and it goes along with the legroom. For a crossover of this size, there's really not that bad at all. I do think that maybe if this is your first vehicle, you can have your friends tag along, or maybe if you're just looking for a more fuel-efficient crossover, you can still have your kids sit in the second row. So this is pretty great to see, and a bit of a surprise just because of the dimensions of this vehicle. Now, for the center seat, there's actually some great placements for your feet. The center hump is not that aggressive at all. The only issue you're going to have here is shoulder room because of the size of the Kicks. Now, I do think on a very, very short drive, you might be able to fit a third person back here, but that might be pushing the limits a bit too much. So most likely you're just going to want to have two people back here because it is going to get pretty cramped if you do have people over the height of maybe 5'8" or 5'9". So keep all that in mind. And then on the driver's side, this seat is adjusted to someone of my height, around 5'5", and I have plenty of legroom to work with here. So when it comes to headroom, legroom for average size adults, I don't think they'll be complaining that much. It's just for taller people and taller passengers, I think they'll find ways to complain, that it's a bit too cramped, that it's a bit too claustrophobic. But again, keep everything into perspective and consideration that this is a small crossover. It's the smallest vehicle in the crossover line for Nissan, and also it's affordable. So just looking at what you have here when it comes to passenger volume, I think this is really great to see. Also back here, you will have 2 USB inputs. Now, there are no rear air vents. That is not a surprise to me at all, especially for a vehicle in this price range. However, there is no center armrest with 2 cup holders, but you will find a cup holder on the door panel. So unfortunately, we are going to miss that minor feature, but at least you can still have your drinks back here. Now, coming around to the back, no surprises here. There is no power liftgate. But behind the second row seats, you're looking at right around 25 cubic feet of room, which is going to outclass some larger crossovers, but more importantly, really be far more practical than its closest rivals, such as a Subaru Crosstrek or maybe even a Hyundai Kona. This is about 7 to 8 cubic feet more than those 2 vehicles. So you'll be able to fit a lot of stuff back here. I was able to fit all my camera gear with ease, no problem. And a lot of that can be contributed to the fact that we do have a higher roofline for a subcompact, but also the flooring is set a little bit lower as well. So they really maximized how much space they actually have here with the Nissan Kicks and how they designed it. Now, you'll be able to fit, I'd say, 4, maybe 5 bags of luggage back here if you stack them up, which is great if you are going on a road trip. Now, most likely this is not a road trip vehicle, but most likely if you are just tooling around town, you can easily fit a lot of stuff back here. Then with the second row seats full, you're looking at right around 53 cubic feet of room, which is really great to see, but also on par with some compact crossovers or smaller compact crossovers. So honestly, when it comes to the practicality aspect and the utility, you really can't complain about what this vehicle is offering. But best of all, beneath the floor mat, you do have a spare tire. Now, that is not common for even some compact crossovers. So if you do encounter a flat on your road trips or travels, you can fix that and be back on the road. And then once you're done, just grab onto the handle and close the hatch. All right, so we are now behind the wheel of the Nissan Kicks, and you're probably asking yourself, okay, Mike, you don't usually film a lot of vehicles in this segment. Does this have anything to do with the gas prices being high and you wanting to show off some economical vehicles? And you know what? Your suspicions would be correct, because the Nissan Kicks has always impressed me from the standpoint that for a small little vehicle like this, it has a decent design to it when it comes to the exterior, but also its practicality and its fuel efficiency, along with its pricing, is pretty difficult to beat. Now, of course, when it comes to vehicles in this market, you're not buying them for the driving dynamics. You're not buying them to really be fully engaged behind the wheel. This is most likely going to be a practical crossover that you're going to drive to work or drive around the city. And to me, I think it's the perfect first car for a young buyer. Now, performance isn't the greatest. I mean, we're talking 122 horsepower, 0 to 60 times, probably getting close to 10 seconds. So, of course, this is not going to be a extremely fun driving experience. However, for a crossover at around $25,000, the interior really isn't that bad. Now, of course, I'd probably go with the SR just because you will get some better creature comforts. But the fact you have a half analog, half digital gauge cluster, pretty rare to see in this price range. But then also you have a nice infotainment system that is pretty easy to use, pretty high quality. And also you have the safety systems. So this crossover is pretty safe for a small, very small crossover. And that's why I feel that it is a great vehicle for somebody that is on a budget, but also if you are looking to buy your first ever brand new car, this could really work in more ways than one, not only financially, but also when it comes to the economical side of things. Because you're looking at somewhere between 31 and 36 mpg, which is pretty great, especially right now where the gas prices are at. Now, when it comes to your front vision, of course, with a lot of econo boxes, you have a nice panoramic view in front of you. A-pillars are not very aggressive at all. When it comes to your blind spot detection, in true Nissan fashion, you will have it on the A-pillar itself. Side mirrors are sized pretty nicely so I can see what's in my blind spots, and looking out back, not that bad at all either. So really, of course, for a boxy vehicle like this, you expect to have all the vision to work with, and your visibility is pretty great, and that's exactly what I'm experiencing here today. I gotta be honest, for a cheap vehicle like this, road noise really isn't that bad. And now, of course, again, this is all relative because, you know, for higher trims and more expensive vehicles, it's gonna be a bit quieter, but I was expecting more of a not so enjoyable drive today. I was expecting a little bit more noise in entering the cabin, but today it's not that bad at all. Now, driving dynamics wise, it's not the worst. It's not the greatest. Of course, when it comes to that acceleration time, that's where it might get a bit annoying. But the CVT is mimicking those gear shifts, and I'm not really noticing a horrible ride at all. I think when it comes to the suspension, it's more than fine for this price range. And then even when it comes to the handling, I'm actually a bit impressed here. I was expecting a little less when it comes to the engagement in that regard, but pretty nice all around in my opinion. And for a small little car like this, you can throw it around. From that standpoint, it can be pretty fun because you really can't get yourself into trouble on roads like this. And you can just throw it into the corners. Not that bad. There's not a lot of body roll at around 35, 40 miles an hour. And I understand why so many people back in the day loved cars like this, because you could have so much fun and not draw too much attention to yourself. Now, since I'm on a bumpy road here, let's see how the suspension really is. It's not that bad. I'm not getting thrown around at all. What I will say though is that these seats are very firm. Now, they don't provide a lot of bolstering. Comfort isn't that bad, but there's definitely some firmness there. I mean, we're not talking, you know, luxury at all in any way, shape, or form. See, it mimics the gear shifts really nicely. And that's one thing I like about what Nissan has done with this CVT. Very similar to what I experienced with Subaru CVTs, where it does mimic those gear shifts quite nicely. It feels like a true automatic, so you're not gonna sit there and complain about the droning of the engine. But honestly though, what's really standing out to me on this test drive is the fact that there's really not a lot of road noise entering this cabin. It's relatively well insulated, and really for a lot of econo boxes, at least the way history has shown us for this particular segment, you don't really expect to have a refined experience. You know, you always have a lot more left to be desired for vehicles like this, and of course when it comes to performance, absolutely. When it comes to this particular segment at least in the New England area, a lot of buyers will go to the Nissan Rogue Sport just because of the all-wheel drive. With this being front-wheel drive only, I understand why so many people pass up on it and why a lot of Nissan dealers don't order these at all for their inventory. So that's why I wanted to really feature this crossover, because I haven't seen too many since they first came out back in 2018. What I also like too is that when it comes to shoulder room, you have a decent amount of it. It doesn't feel like a subcompact in here at all. Especially with the higher roofline, I have a good amount of headroom to work with here. And honestly, I think for a daily driver, and we have to keep this into perspective, because you're looking at a crossover at around $20,000, $22,000, $23,000. And most likely, you may look at the Nissan Rogue Sport, you may look elsewhere, depending on what your region is. If you don't encounter snow, maybe the Nissan Kicks is gonna be the perfect crossover for you. But then if you are a younger buyer, you're looking to buy a first ever vehicle, you want something that's economical, that's practical, that is affordable, and has enough room where if you do need to have people in the second row or alongside you, you're not going to feel cramped, they're not going to feel cramped, and it's just really a great daily to tool around in, whether it's in the suburbs or in the city. So this crossover does its job quite well. I think when you look at the performance, you're never going to get something that is extremely fun to drive. You're not going to get something that is going to really go off the line really quickly, and you're going to be passing drivers on the highway at 70, 80 miles an hour, and it probably won't feel that good to be driving that fast in a crossover like this. But when it comes to the daily aspects, when it comes to what you're buying this vehicle for, it does that job really well. And best of all for Nissan is that they're one of very few brands in this particular segment that can give you a crossover that is affordable, that is good looking. I mean, when you look at it from the exterior, it is pretty nice. I love the facelift. I love what they've done to this crossover for the mid-cycle refresh. And really, I just think that when it comes to the value it's providing, it's doing exactly what it has been designed to do. And if you are looking to save some money, maybe downsize, and maybe you just want to have a vehicle that can get you to point A to point B, and you're not really wasting a lot of gas, you don't have to go to the pump as much, then that's where the Nissan Kicks really comes into play. So to wrap up this review, let's do one quick acceleration here. Quick being a relative term. All right, I'm at 60. Now again, at highway speeds, it's not that bad, not a lot of road noise entering the cabin. And I think that's where I'm going to leave off this review, is the fact that the interior really isn't that bad. You do have a decent amount of features to work with. You can opt for the SR. You get a good amount of features with that, with the Bose sound system and the headrest. So I think even for an SV, you're still getting quite a lot. You're getting a good amount of value. And I don't know, I mean, if you are looking to buy an Econo box, compared to some of the rivals like the Chevy Trax, the Ford EcoSport or EcoSport, whatever they want to call it these days, this actually is the better looking vehicle. It looks more like a hatchback, and I think it looks better than the Nissan Versa. So if you're basing this all on practicality, efficiency, exterior design, and affordability, I think the Nissan Kicks really checks off all the boxes. So in closing, what are my final thoughts for the 2022 Nissan Kicks? Well, we have to keep everything into perspective here. That yes, it doesn't have a heated steering wheel or heated seats for the SV. And I do think that at some point you have to wonder if maybe you're just a little bit spoiled for this price point, because crossovers at around $25,000, $30,000 are not going to have all the creature comforts, especially when you start looking at compact crossovers. You're going to be spending close to $35 or $40 for the leather seats, for the more plush experience. But for a crossover at around $20,000, I don't really know what more you could ask for, because it is practical, it is fuel efficient, and it is affordable. What I also like too is it has a decent amount of technology for this price point. Half digital gauge cluster, which gives you a good amount of information that we just don't see a lot in this market. I like the infotainment system, very easy to use with quick access buttons and physical dials mounted on either side of the screen. Then also, of course, with the dashboard, you do have physical dials and buttons for your climate control settings. Also, another thing too that I really like, and it's great to see this even for a not base model, but more of a base vehicle in the Nissan lineup. We have a push button start, but also there's some soft touch materials for the center console and the center armrest, which just really adds a nice touch to the driving experience and just gives you a bit more comfort while you are driving around on a longer road trip. But really though, this crossover is designed to be maybe a vehicle you take around the city or the suburbs, and you're not really wasting all that gas. Now I do think that had I featured this vehicle 3, 4, possibly 6 months ago, I'd probably be sitting here saying, this needs a lot of work, it needs leather seats, it needs heated seats, it needs everything. But keeping everything into perspective right now, where the gas prices are and really where car prices are in general, what you have here to work with is a vehicle that is going to get you to point A to point B. You're not going to be going to the gas station more than twice a week, or maybe more than once a week, depending on how long of a commute you have. And also, when it comes to that family-friendly aspect, you can fit people in the second row and you have plenty of cargo space. So when you factor all that in and then you throw in the safety features that come standard on this model, I really don't know what else you could ask for. Maybe you could spend a few more hours cross-shopping the competition. But I do think that what you're paying for, what you're getting, is good enough. It is decent. And really, it is a solution to some of the problems that you might be finding here in the automotive market this year, where vehicles are more expensive, where gas prices are more expensive. And this right here is a solution to your problems. So to me, I just think that what the Nissan Kicks is offering, even for an SV, is pretty great. And it's definitely worth taking a look at if you are on a budget, or maybe you're looking at buying your first ever vehicle. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more. Also, make sure to follow me on Instagram at Boston Autoblog so you can see what I'm up to and what vehicles I'll be featuring in the future. And I will see you guys next time.